What's going on? What up? What up? What up? It's your man, Raphael Haynes, aka Mr. Controversy. Did you miss me? And of course, if I'm here, I got a special guest, and I have a special guest, the one they call the what they call it, is it the athletic activist or the activist athlete? How does it go again?
Activist athlete, you know.
Activist athlete, my
Yeah.
guy, Etan Thomas. How's it going today, man?
Oh, I'm blessed. I'm blessed. How you doing?
I'm great. Still yearning for some sports,
Of
but
course, as we
but
all
hey,
are.
right. But like we'd rather be healthy
No
than.
question. No question.
And speaking of that, what have you been doing to keep yourself busy, or have you been watching any binging any shows, anything like that?
Well, I mean, I got, me and my wife, I always say I got. My wife would be like, all right, don't say like you have kids. We have kids. I'm like, all right, babe, you know, my bad. But we have 3 kids. So doing the homeschooling and, working out with them. My daughters play volleyball. My son plays basketball and soccer. So we're working out with them and, we're chilling. The days kind of move kind of quick. And then plus I have my show that I do for ESPN Syracuse. And,
Mhm.
the days kind of go. So we're quarantined though. We're not one of the people that's going out trying to kick it because some stuff is opening up. We're in. So yeah,
Yeah,
we're
and I'm in
inside.
Atlanta. I'm in Atlanta, and they open up everything, and
Yeah, whatever. They tripping.
I'm not going out there. They tripping.
they
Like big
tripping,
time.
man.
Even I know people say, okay, you going to barbershop? No. So my barber,
Man.
he created a shed, and it's a bar. He has his barbershop in the shed, just one person at a time. He
Uh,
has the face mask plus the
all right.
shield on the face
Okay.
and gloves. Switch out gloves every person he cut.
All
So
right. That ain't bad.
safe. Yeah,
That ain't
yeah. But
bad.
other than that, I'm at the house, man. So I'm definitely with you.
I mean, it's
But
crazy because they open it up everywhere, and they
oh yeah,
bring the NBA back. They got the plans for the NBA. They got the plans for the MLB. They got plans for hockey. They're trying to push youth sports back. I'm like, and I coach AAU. I coach my son's AAU team, and I told
mhm,
all my parents, I was like, look, I don't care what they say. We're not going to be coming back immediately. We go if they come back, we're going to wait a full month and see what happens when they come back. And everybody, they was
right.
all on board with me. I was like, all right, cool, y'all all on board, but we ain't just gonna jump out there just because they open stuff up.
Right. And speaking of NBA, like you stated, they've been talking about it opening up. It's funny because I don't think Adam Silver wants to do it.
I
Just
know it.
I think
Yeah, I don't think he wants
but
to do it at all. But the thing about Adam Silver, and I had the chance to interview Adam Silver, and the thing that sets him apart from David Stern, and you don't want to talk, ill about somebody that's passed, but Adam Silver listens to people, and he and
right,
he tries to do things, when if the people all say that they want to do something. So he listens to the players. He's a person who really wants to be the a player's commissioner. Like a player's coach, like a player's
right.
commissioner. Roger Goodell's not the same. You know what I mean? Other
No.
other commissioners not the same, but he's somebody who's different. So he's going to try to figure out every way that he can possibly do it, and if it doesn't work, he tried.
Yeah, and we
Yeah.
were just talking about that on the show. And I said the same thing. He's that. I just like the fact that he's all right. Let me try,
Right.
but I just felt like some inside. He's like,
Yeah.
I really don't want to do this. I want to
Right.
be safe, which is cool.
Right.
Could you imagine playing in an empty stadium?
I don't think that part would be so much the issue because guys, we scrimmage, each other. And the scrimmages be just like you're in a game situation. They be competitive, everything
Right.
like that. I don't think that part will be as traumatic. I think it's just more. I'm interested in seeing how many guys elect not to play. That's what I'm interested in seeing
Mm,
because there's going to be guys that don't feel safe playing, that don't want to play, that don't want, because there's a lot of question marks. Everything is opening up,
right.
and we have Trump telling us that everything is fine, but don't nobody believe Trump except for them people. You know what I mean? His
Right. Right.
support is the only one that's believing that.
Exactly.
So
And
you have all these question marks. So a lot of guys don't. I would imagine they wouldn't feel comfortable or safe, just going back and playing like nothing is happening.
because Damian Lillard came out and said, I mean,
Mhm.
they're 3.5 games back, but he was like, look, depending on what they do as far as the league, as far as how many games, we don't have a real chance of getting to the playoffs. I'm not playing.
Right.
which I agree.
I understand,
I
but
agree.
I think you're going to see more people elect not to play, and not just for playoff reasons, but just for safety reasons. They don't feel,
Right.
and I think the NBA's plan is probably the one of the better plans that I've heard. You know, I mean, I didn't MLB's plan. I heard theirs. I heard hockey's. UFC's was ridiculous, but they didn't go ahead and go and do that. But yeah, their plan of what they're trying to do down at Disney World and how they're trying to construct it is probably one of the better plans. But I still don't know if I would feel all that comfortable, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely miss it being in the media, but I'm like, man, safety first.
Of
So I
course,
hope they go safety first.
of course.
Now, with you, how were you introduced to basketball? Because former NBA player, we know.
Uh-huh.
How were you introduced to the sport?
Oh, from a young age, you know, watching ball with my grandfather, and you know, my grandfather was a diehard Knicks fan. Die-hard Knicks fan. Everything New York, Yankees. You know, he didn't like the Mets that much, but everything New York. You know, so we was watching the Knicks like from early days. My dad wasn't as big of a basketball fan. You know, he wasn't, but my grandfather, he was. Oh, we watching the Yankees, and you know, baseball. It's cool. You know what I mean? Like I watch it because I was chilling with my grandfather, but it wasn't the most exciting sport, to be honest with you. You know, but yeah, but going to the park, you know, going into watching, you know, Rucker Park and going through the parks in New York and everything like that, and you know, with my grandfather, and then I just started wanting to do what I see the older guys do.
Cool. And you went to Syracuse,
Mm-hmm.
played for the legendary Jim Boeheim,
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, and
Yeah.
playing for him, man, knowing that's a legend. What was that like? What was that experience like?
It was cool. I mean, like, so my freshman year, I didn't really play a lot. You know, I was behind
Mhm.
a great center, Otis Hill, and I learned a whole lot from him. But I didn't play a lot, so I was the bottom man on the totem pole. I was all the way at the bottom. You know what I mean? Like gum on the bottom of the shoes totem pole. And
Right.
and so my first year, I didn't like Syracuse at all. I wanted to transfer. I was like this close to transferring. Yeah, I was about to be
Why?
out. I was about to be
Why?
gone. I hated it. I didn't like it. I didn't like Bayheim. It was cold. You know, I grew up in Tulsa, Oklahoma. So half of my all my boys is at OU, Oklahoma University, and they all together. I see them all in pictures, like we all kicking it. You know what I mean? I'm like, I'm up here in the cold, not playing. You know what I mean? It's
Right,
snowing.
right.
You know, just having the blues. So I was about to be out, but you know, I'm glad I did stay, and everything changed my sophomore year. And you know, it was just kind of rolling from there.
Do you have any misconceptions about, or are there any misconceptions about Boeheim? You know, we see him the fiery coach. We know how he is, but like as for instance, I can tell you a story. My second college game I ever covered
Mm-hmm.
was Syracuse versus Georgia Tech here. And so I'm nervous already because this is Boeheim. We get into press conference. So I'm like, I think I'm gonna ask a question. I'm nervous. And some reporter asked him, well, it seemed like during the game you wanted to do this, but it didn't happen. What was your thought process? And Boeheim said, that's what you evaluated. So you evaluated that. So that's what you thought. He said, "Are you the coach?" And he
Yeah,
went in, and I'm
yeah,
looking like, man,
yeah.
I'm not asking no
No,
questions.
no, Bayham has an interesting relationship with the media, and so
Right.
he messes with the media, and he like has the, you know, he gets a little irritated by some of the questions sometimes, but then he does things like that. So he's always been doing that. That's just you know, like when people criticize the zone. And he was like, you know, I've been playing this for how long? You've watched me play this for how long? You think I'm going to come out of it now because you think that I should, you know? So that's just Coach Boeheim.
Yeah, that's him. So you win Big East Defensive Player of the Year your senior year.
Yeah.
Was that when you realized, okay, I'm about to be playing in the NBA, or did you have that feeling before then?
Well, I wanted my junior and senior year, you know, back to
Okay,
back.
okay.
Yeah, so I was just kind of like, you know, I was just enjoying playing ball, to be honest with you.
Mhm.
My sophomore year was like my breakout year, so I loved playing. There was no, you know, no pressure or anything like that. Just you know, you have the opportunity to play where you didn't get the opportunity the year before. You're just having a blast. And so, after my junior year was really kind of when I started, thinking about the NBA because other people were telling me. I remember we lost to Oklahoma State in the tournament my junior year, and I was pissed because I had played AAU against all of these guys, like all of them, Desmond Mason, Joe Atkins, the whole half of the team. I'd have grown up playing AAU against them, because I played in Tulsa, Oklahoma. So we lost that game. I had a real good game, but we lost. I was upset. Then you had the agents telling you, hey, you should come out. If you come out, you'll be, in the first round. Or you have, different people saying this and that. And I had a good conversation with, my grandfather. I had a good conversation with my assistant coach, Louis Orr. Like, that was my guy. And, he said, yeah, if you come out now, you'll probably go the end of the first round. He was like, but, how the NBA is set up, the players that go in the end of the first round, they're most likely going to be drafted to a real good team. Because the lottery pick, the higher you go, usually the worse the team. And it's like, so if you come back next year, you can go to a lottery pick. The money is better, the security is better, and you have more chance of an opportunity to play in the beginning part of your years. Where if you get picked in the bottom of the first round, most likely you're gonna have to sit and watch. But then the clock's ticking. So if you don't play that year, you don't play the next year, then if they don't pick up your option, you could be out the league. And I was like, well, that makes sense. You know what I mean? So I came back my senior year, and I ended up the 12th pick. And it was a great decision to come back.
First season you played 2001 to 2002 season. Mike decides to come back.
Right.
For the Wizards. You with the Wizards.
Yeah.
Man, what was your thoughts? Was that nerve-wracking? Were you excited?
It was
like, okay,
crazy.
I'm playing now, Jordan here.
It was crazy. So I first got drafted to the Dallas Mavericks. I was the first player that Mark Cuban ever drafted. I was the number 12 pick, the first player. So it was great. But I got hurt in training camp. So I had to have surgery on my foot. So I didn't play that first year with Dallas. And in the middle of the year, we half the team got traded to Washington with for when Juwan Howard came down from Washington to Dallas. Right, it was that year. Yeah. So MJ came out of retirement, and Washington was really like 18 games winning. You know what I mean? That it wasn't so everybody was going to be able to play. All the young players were going to be able to play. Nobody cared. We didn't have no TV games. Wasn't nothing like that going on. Didn't nobody care about no watching the Wizards, right? MJ comes back, and every game is sold out. We have literally like 50 TV games. 50.
I remember I was watching.
You know what I mean? And everything is completely different. But so I had to just kind of, wait my turn. He had a lot of veterans around. But the person that I felt bad for was Kwame Brown. That's who I felt bad for. And Kwame, now listen, there's a lot of misconception about Kwame. Kwame was the best player in that draft. I saw with my own eyes that the Wizards brought him in, and they brought in Tyson Chandler, and then they brought in Eddie Curry, and they brought in two other top big men. And Kwame destroyed all of them. Like, it wasn't even close. Like, not just, not like they played and, they got the best of him. He got the best of it. He was like here and they were there. Like, he destroyed them. And what happened was with the Wizards, Doug Collins was in a protective mode of Michael Jordan. And it's understandable. You know what I mean? This was Michael Jordan's like lad. He come back and everything like that. And everything that went well was all pushed towards MJ. MJ got all the praise, all the glory, all everything like that, right? If anything ever went wrong, it was Kwame's fault. Anything, like stuff that even one didn't have nothing to do with Kwame, it was Kwame's fault. And to put that on a 17-year-old kid, you know what I mean? Like, it was just too much. And I think that really it was so that's how me and Kwame got close. Because I was like, man, this is messed up how they doing you, man. Are you good? Let's go kick it. Let's go out to eat or something like that. You know what I mean? And chop it up. Because I was like, man, I don't know how I would be able to even, function in that kind of a situation. Because it was literally like everything was his fault. I was like, wow, that's tough.
And see, I remember that. It's funny. My shout out to Alex Babs, one of the writers for the 3 point conversion. He
Okay.
wrote an article. We have these articles called Unpopular Opinions, and it's a group of articles we write our opinions real short.
Mhm.
It's a big article, but all of us have like a short little article within the article. And he talked about Kwame, how he said
Mhm.
Kwame wasn't that bad. He got the raw end of the stick, like you said, because of Michael. And then of course he went to LA. Then who's there? Kobe.
Kobe. Yeah,
So
right.
it's
I was like,
so
oh dang, of all the places to get traded, they're gonna go with Kobe. This is the same situation.
So we during the last dance, you hear all of those stories about Mike being demanding and Mike being just Mike. He wants to win,
Mhm.
which I understand. Like I said,
Mhm.
I'm from Chicago. I'm from the
Of course.
crib.
I got you.
But you playing with him, did you see that? Was he that way? Because it seemed like he was more of the teacher, just from watching on the screen. He was more of a teacher in Washington than he was playing with the Bulls.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. He definitely was. Because he knew that he had to assume a different role, but he still wanted to win. And the pressure was still on. And it was almost like, y'all don't make me look bad. You know what I mean? Type of
Right,
a thing.
right.
Because and it was. If we lost, it wasn't nobody care about none of us. Nobody even know none of our names. It was all MJ. So I get it.
Right.
But it was just a tough situation, to be honest with you. And it was interesting because it was like I asked him one time, I asked MJ, I was like, why are you even doing this? Like real
Mm,
talk. Like it was one time we was on the training table and he was getting his knee drained for like the 10th time. This was like in the second season, and he was hurt, his back was hurting, and when the knee drained, it was disgusting. Like his knee would swell up after every game, look like the Elephant
mm,
Man, right? And they would have to drain it, and this black goo tar looking stuff would come out. And I'm sitting
okay.
there, you know what I mean, with my little ice and stem, and I'm like, ew, what is going on over there? So they doing all this, and he's in pain and riding and stuff. And I sat and I asked him, I was like, why are you even doing this, man? Like you don't have to prove anything to anybody. Who cares if we make the playoffs or not? Like you're MJ. You know what I mean?
Right,
And he
right.
looked at me, and it's interesting when I said it to him, he looked at me, and he was just kind of like, you know what I mean? But he had that competitive drive. Like he wanted to win. I think if he could come out at retirement right now as a new challenge, he would do it because he just has that drive. But I was just like, yeah,
Right.
bro, you ain't got nothing to prove. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's crazy. That's a great story. Yeah. I wondered too. I kind of hated it because I felt like he was going to hurt his stats, but still just to watch him do it for you all and then
Mm.
the effort that he was given. I
Oh
remember him
yeah.
diving, I think it was last season, diving on the floor and he
Hit
busted
his
his
chin.
chin. It was
Yep,
just
I
like,
remember
yeah, it's like,
that.
man.
Yeah.
So do you remember your welcome to the NBA moment?
Welcome to the NBA. I mean, we're playing with MJ. That was kind of like my.
Yeah, right.
I mean, for real. So like we sitting there, and it's crazy because we're around him, right? And
Mhm.
after a while, he becomes like one of the guys. He loved hanging. He loved clowning on the bus. He loved, kicking it on the plane. Like he liked being around the team, right? So after a
Mhm.
while, we got used to him. And we would go away for training camp, and we're all together the whole time. So, we're just kind of together. So we're used to everybody. But then we went out, and it was like,
Mhm.
oh, wow, yeah, no, this is MJ. You know what I'm saying? It was like, those images of Michael Jackson when he was like, you would see the crowd and people would like go crazy when they see him, and there'd be like thousands of people, and like you would see people look at him and just start crying. You know what I mean? Or
Right.
so, or somebody touches arm and then pass out. And stuff like that. That's what we saw with MJ. We were like, dang, this is crazy. Because it was like
Yeah.
literally people, like worshiping him. Like you can't really explain it unless you just see it. And that part, that was the welcome to the NBA moment. I was like, wow, this is a whole different other level.
Yeah, I haven't been out with none of the stars like that, but I saw it with LeBron.
Yeah.
Watching him, I covered a game last year, this
Mhm.
past year. Lakers came in town, and he couldn't even get out
Right.
because everybody. And it's funny, it's not just fans. You had other stars,
Yeah, the stars.
other that played in the NBA. They waiting to
Yeah,
see him.
yeah,
He's like, is there a back way I can go out? And
right.
it was so I saw that. And yeah, that's got to be interesting.
It's crazy.
So in 2007,
Mm-hmm.
because the year before you starting games now,
Mm-hmm.
you were starting,
Mm-hmm.
then you go have a routine
Mm-hmm.
physical,
Mm-hmm.
and then you find out that it was an
Yeah,
aortic
ascending aorta. So what I had
yeah,
was called
okay,
so I had a leaky valve. Uh,
right,
and so
aortic valve,
I
right.
had that when I was younger. So I had that when I was like in
Okay.
middle school. And I just had to get it checked every year. I had to do things a little different, like say if I had to go to the dentist, I had to get antibiotics. I can never drink like coffee or anything with caffeine all growing up my whole life, just so the little things I had to do different. But I always knew about it. And I knew at some point I would have to have surgery, right? But I always thought it was going to be when I was old. You know what I mean? Like when I
Right.
was an older cat and something like that. But I'm sitting here, I was like 28, like 20, and I'm starting, I'm playing well, I'm doing everything like that. Right before training camp, the doctor, and I remember, he did my routine. He was like, I was like, well, what's up? What's wrong? Don't be making that face. What's wrong? He was like, let me send you to 2 other places to get second opinions. And I was like, second opinions of what? You ain't even gave me the first opinion. So he didn't want to say that he thinks that I needed open heart surgery. So he wanted to get 2 different opinions before he even says anything. So I went to Chicago and saw this specialist, went to the Mayo Clinic and saw another specialist, and they all said the same thing. Yeah, we think this is a good time for him to have open heart surgery. And I was like, open heart surgery? I mean, I feel fine. You know what I mean? I was like, I feel good. And they was like, yeah, and that's the toughest part because you're going to feel good right now, and you're going to feel like nothing is wrong. But we're looking at your numbers and everything like that, and that is just not worth the risk. And I was like, you got to be killing me. You know what I mean? Like right now. So
Right now.
that's had to stop and, have open heart surgery.
Did you think it was all over? Or did they tell you could play again, or was it like?
Yeah, they told me
slim chance?
No, they told me I would be fine. I think the one thing is that the media kind of wrote me off and said that it was going to be all over, and that's what really gave me the push. I remember I got into it with a reporter, Ivan Carter, who was at the Washington Post, and he wrote an article, and he didn't represent or do his homework as to what I actually had. So he linked all open heart surgeries together, and they're not all the same. So it's I would say lazy journalism. So,
Right.
what Len Bias had is different than what, what I mean? So everybody has something different, and you can't just club everything as just like they're all the same. And so, I started writing back, I'm sitting there, I can't do nothing anyway. So I just wrote back with the Washington Post, wrote an article back to him and, like an open letter to him type thing, correcting all of his mistakes. And, he didn't particularly take too kindly to that because, most media people don't like if a player actually corrects them, on their own platform. But the fact that a lot of media, people kind of wrote me off, like say, okay, he's finished, that really gave me the drive and the push to really start, coming back. Because I was, NBA contracts are different. It's not like if I was in the NFL, I'd have been cut that right after that, probably, most likely, because you have a non-guaranteed contracts. The contract situation is different. So with the NBA contract, I still had 2 or 3 years left on my contract. So a lot of people, my family were kind of like, well, why don't you just chill? Just chill, let your contract run out. And then I'm like, nah, because they don't think I could come back. You know what I mean? So that gave me like the push. So I pushed and went on ahead and came back.
Yeah, that's what's up, man. And then you I think you played one more year, and then you got traded to OKC, right?
Right.
In 2010, 2009, 2010. That young team.
Oh, man.
Was Russ was there then, right?
Yeah,
Russ,
it was James Harden.
okay.
It was James Harden was a rookie. Russell Westbrook. You had KD. You had Serge Ibaka. You had Jeff Green. They had a crew, and I was like,
see it?
Me and Kevin Ollie, we were like the vets of the team. We were looking. We was like, man, these young cats don't even know how good they are. Like they don't even know how good they're about to be. Like Serge Ibaka had no idea. Like he was just there playing. Like this, you know what I mean? No idea whatsoever. And we was like, man, they keep these cats together, they're gonna win some championships, like some championships. And they couldn't keep them together, and they should have. They should have. Yeah, they should have. That was a big mistake. You at least win one championship before you start breaking people up. You pay them cats what they need to get paid and keep everybody there.
And the funny thing is, that was it was almost in a sense before the era of having all these superstars. You had KG them, and then you had Miami, but it still wasn't as impactful all throughout the whole, NBA. But as they broke up, now you see superstars linking up together.
Yeah, but this was different because they were young.
Right. They were young and they came together, right.
So they would have grown up to a super team. You know what I mean?
Right.
So they would have been younger and then grown into a super team from being younger. Now having to have nobody else come in. That would have been a special case.
Because I wonder if they, I know they're slapping themselves in the face now, but I wonder if, let's say, if that has already started happening, but you had drafted them three, they still was on the same team, would they have kept them together? I think they would have.
Wait, say it again. You said if they would have drafted them all together?
So they drafted them all together, but let's say if the super teams start happening while they were still in OKC, I don't think OKC would have. I think they would have signed all three of them.
I don't know, man. I think it was kind of like a salary cap type thing, and they wanted to get, they didn't want to go that much far over the salary cap, and we're looking at for different reasons, for economic reasons, and that's what sucked. True. I don't think it had anything to do with it, like we saw with The Last Dance with Krause. Krause, wanted to go for economic reasons to get under the salary cap and, start all over and rebuild which is ridiculous. Like, why would you want if you just won 6 championships? Why would you go for your 7th and 8th? You're supposed to keep going. If somebody does beat you, then they got to beat you again, and then you break it all up. But until that happens, you keep going.
Don't remind me, man.
All right, my bad. I didn't want to bring up old stuff, but I'm like, man. And then what's crazy is Reinsdorf was like trying to skate all the blame in it. Like, oh yeah, no, I didn't want Scottie Pippen to sign that contract. I told him not to sign it. Like, wait a minute, you're the CEO. You know what I mean? What you mean? You told him not to sign it. Don't. I know Krause was who he was, but don't put all the blame on Krause. You know what I'm saying? You still had to okay everything.
Right. You can change everything. Right. Exactly. He did the same thing to the White Sox. I know you're not a baseball fan, but he did the same thing to the White Sox. In '94, they had built something before they went on strike. They were looking like, okay, this is something huge, and he tore them all up. So
yeah, man.
Yeah, he always had a habit of that. But that was unfortunate with OKC, and then of course all three winning MVP. So it's like
crazy.
It's crazy, man. Crazy. So I want to really get into the good stuff.
Okay.
So man, first of all, let me ask you before we really get into that, what made you become an activist?
Oh, well, I was the people that knew me growing up. And it's so funny when you talking to other people who like grew up with me like in high school, they all say, yeah, you've been this way since then. You're just doing it on a different level. And like, we knew that you would be this person back at Booker T. Washington High School in Tulsa, Oklahoma, because I have kind of been, I was doing speech and debate when I was in high school. So I was, I wanted to write, speeches like Malcolm X, first. So that's what I wanted to do. I started learning about Malcolm when I was in middle school. So as I got to high school, I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I could write speeches like Malcolm X and perform different places and, talk about different things and stuff like that. So I started doing that. And I started debating different topics. And, so I just started loving it. So Booker T, we was winning state championships in basketball. And we was also winning state championships in speech and debate. So it was just like, that's what I always did. I wasn't always just one thing. I always did both. And I carried that on through Syracuse. I did the same thing in Syracuse and did it while I was in the pros. And then I get, I'm here in DC with the Wizards, and DC is just a political, just political energy all over the place. And then you had the war in Iraq happen. So I'm doing, spoken word and poetry and speaking in different places all across DC. And I'm talking about different things about the system and about George Bush so I just kind of kept going, doing what I've always done and just using my position as a platform. And I grew up admiring athletes that did that. Like I grew up admiring people like Bill Russell and Muhammad Ali and Kareem. Those are the athletes that I grew up really wanting to emulate.
Mm. So now you look at today, what we're dealing with. I mean, George Floyd, what
Mm-hmm.
happened with him, his
Mm-hmm.
killing, of course, by cops.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, Ahmaud Arbery. With you having a platform that you have, even myself and all of us that do have the platforms, what can we do? What is the best way to go about this?
So I wrote a book called We Matter: Athletes and Activism. And in my book, I interviewed a lot of different athletes, from yesteryear and now. I interviewed Bill Russell and Kareem and John Carlos and Craig Hodges and Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf. And then from now, I interviewed like Eric Reed and Russell Westbrook and Dwayne Wade and all those guys too. So, but I also interviewed family members of the victims of police brutality. So I interviewed like Eric Garner's daughter, Emerald, and Trayvon Martin's brother, Javaris, and Terrence Crutcher's sister, Tiffany Crutcher, and Valerie Castile, who's Philando Castile's mother. And I started doing work with them, in particular, to tackle this issue of police brutality. I did a lot of work with Sabrina Fulton, Trayvon Martin's mom. And, they're running for political positions in their respective cities. And you're seeing that a lot. But one of the things that really inspired me a lot was, in particular, Tiffany Crutcher. And so if you don't remember what happened, her brother, Terrence Crutcher, in Tulsa, Oklahoma, his car was pulled over to the side of the road and it was broken down. It wasn't working. And a policeman came up to him and he thought that the policeman was coming to help him. Because his car had been broken down. He's like, oh, okay, cool. The police is here to help me. But they were like, get your hands up, everything like that. And he was like, whoa, what's going on? He wasn't the suspect in anything. He didn't do anything wrong. There was no guns. There was no weapon. There was no that's the scenario. Helicopter came. They had him on tape kind of saying he looks like a bad dude. Be careful. Proceed with caution type thing. And the police officer, Betty Shelby, ended up killing him, right? So Tiffany Crutcher has had this passion to really change the way that the police operate. And so what she says, and this is, something that I really, to answer, this is a long way of answering your question. What she says, from doing all of the work that we've been doing together, she says that you cannot change somebody's heart. You cannot. You cannot legislate their heart. You can give them sensitivity training, all that other stuff. You can't change their heart. What you have to do is change the laws so that even if their heart isn't right, they can't act on their bias or their racism or their anger or their hatred. So she has been pushing to make the laws different, to where, like, say, for instance, a police officer has to show probable cause of rendering their firearm. You know what I mean? Like, they can't just say, I was in fear for my life, and that be it. Because that's what Betty Shelby did. Officer Betty Shelby, she was on the stand. Every time they said something, they were like, well, did he show a gun? Did he show this? She was like, well, I was in fear for my life. She just kept repeating the phrase. And so she's pushing to where a police officer has to actually show an actual immediate threat to justify them using their firearm. Now that changes everything. You know what I mean? Right. Also, like Emerald Garner, the chokehold that the officer Daniel Pantaleo used to choke her father to death, she's pushing to have it outlawed all throughout the state of New York. So she's doing the same thing. So those really, we have to hold police accountable, and we have to change the laws. Those are the things. Like, and I have to agree with them. And doing all this work, and we've done all these different programs and everything like that, you can't change people's heart. You can't. Yeah. That's not going to work. You know what I mean? If they have that bias, if they look at you or me and they're afraid, and that's just what happens. I mean, you can't change that.
Yeah, it's sad, and that's I definitely wanted to ask you that because I just had I'm not gonna say his name. I had a
Okay.
conversation with somebody on Facebook, and
Mm-hmm.
and we were talking about Trayvon Martin's mother running,
Mm-hmm.
and I posted the link up, right, and the guy came on, he's a white guy, and he stated, he was like, yeah, well, her son wasn't, what did he say, something like, her so-called son of an angel, so-called son that was an angel, is not gonna help her out. And of course, I'm just like, bro, what does that have to do with her running?
What does that have to
And
do
what does
with?
that have to do with that killing anyway? Just,
And the thing
but
about it is, the thing that's so tough with this is that that's always the immediate response is they start looking to demonize the person who was actually killed, not demonizing the cop, not looking at the
right,
cop's past, not saying looking to past the cop's history or anything like that. They're looking at the history of the person who was killed to justify and say, oh, well, it's not that serious. He wasn't that good of a kid. He wasn't that good of a guy. They're bringing up some stuff that has nothing to do with the person being killed. And it's
right.
amazing. Like when you hear different justifications like that always happen. Like it follows like a script. And
Mm-hmm.
it's just and one of the things that I'm doing with my book is that I'm glad that it's successful in this way, but it's also frustrating that it's successful for this reason. Is because you have, I've been speaking, well, before this pandemic, of course, but I was speaking at colleges all across the country, colleges and universities all across Ivy League, Harvard, Yale, HBCUs, Morehouse, Spelman, how all across the country, right? And from white people, they say that hearing Dwayne Wade say it or hearing Russell Westbrook say it makes them say, well, wait a minute now, this might be something like, well, this isn't right if they're so upset. And I'm like, it's frustrating that it takes Dwayne Wade saying it for you
Right.
to look at the Trayvon Martin case and saying something is wrong with that case. But that's the reality. Like I've gotten
So
so much response. I mean, I've gotten invited to different places just for them to ask me, about a particular story that one particular athlete said that struck them. You know what I mean?
right.
And the story is talking about what he saw that happened to somebody else. Is that
Mm.
that's just it shouldn't be like that, but
No.
that's what gets mainstream Americans'
So
attention.
in saying that, you're right, it shouldn't be like that at all. When it comes to these athletes, and
Mhm.
I say that I always say, even with Jordan and the situation with the governor, which I mean,
Mhm.
I don't think he's ever passed for that. But at the
Right.
same time,
Right,
I
right,
say
right.
that's not. I mean, we can't get mad at an athlete if that's just not them. They don't do that. But at the
Right.
same time, should athletes speak up more, or because I mean, definitely it could be we see how it affected, like you said, the white people that came up to you,
Mhm.
what it is there a way that they can, or is it something that it can do? We know Adam Silver is more for the players in the NBA doing it. Of course, we know
Mhm.
the NFL, they don't want that with the
Right.
coach situation. So how do you feel about that?
So
Like,
everything I'm doing with my book is to encourage athletes to use their voices. I'm
okay,
showing athletes that listen. I've interviewed Adam Silver, I've interviewed Mark Cuban, I've interviewed Ted Leonsis. They've been on record saying you're not going to get punished. This whole myth to try to destroy the myth that if you speak out, you're going to hurt your chances. They're going to, people are not going to want to back off of you. I try to destroy that. I try to show the athletes from the past, show the athletes in the present who are using their voices. I showed specifically from like Javaris, Trevor Martin's brother. He told me a story.
mhm,
He said during the interview, he said if it weren't for athletes, he doesn't feel that anybody would know his brother's name. And I was like, wow, that's pretty strong. Why do you say that? He's like, because people, and this is him talking, he said, because people forget that when Trayvon Martin was first killed, the family, they were trying to get some news to the local news to cover it, and nobody wanted to cover it. He's like, they all told them, well, this is just another young black man that got killed. This is not really newsworthy. I was like, that's what they told you? He was like, that's what they told us for a long time. He's like, but then LeBron James started talking about it. And then D Wade started talking about it. Then the whole team posed in the hoodies and said, we are Trayvon Martin. And then all the people who love LeBron James and love Dwayne Wade were like, well, what is this that has LeBron James and D Wade all riled up? And then they started paying attention. Then you had all the different media. And I was just like, wow. But again, that goes to the frustration because it shouldn't be like that. But so I tell young people, I show young people that interview specifically from Javaris and him telling it to encourage them the power of their voice. Now, I won't say that it should be, I don't go as far as to say that it should be a requirement. Requirement is kind of a hard, that's
harsh.
Right. But I'll say that you have a tremendous opportunity and a tremendous platform. But a requirement is kind of tough because, and I'll say this honestly, some athletes, you don't want them saying nothing.
No.
That's the honest truth. You're gonna say the wrong thing, look all crazy, and then they make you look like a buffoon. Then that hurts all other athletes. You know what I mean? If you don't know what you're talking about, don't say nothing. But the athletes that have a passion, because when you speak out about something, you have to almost go into like a speech and debate mode because you know that they're immediately going to try to attack you. First, they're going to make it seem like you don't know what you're talking about. That's number one. And then what they're going to do is they're going to try to come at you with everything to try to negate what you said. And so you have to be able to come with a response. You have to become with a retort. I mean, because you have to be able to present your positions, on the topic in the different layers of it. And if you don't, then they cast you off. That's why you should stick to basketball. That's what people do.
Yeah.
And the interesting part is, that happens on the left and the right. That's not just the right that does that. If anybody disagrees with you, because the left will come at you just as strong as the right will if you speak out on a topic that they disagree with. That happens. So it ain't no one thing. You know what I mean? There's both sides that do that.
Man, that's horrible. Before we let you go, I usually let one of the watchers, people who's watching and comment, they have a question, I put it up. So I'm gonna put up this question right here. Vincent David Jackson asking, what are your thoughts on MJ telling Thorne that he didn't want Isaiah on the Dream Team?
Okay, Vincent David Jackson. So I actually interviewed Isaiah Thomas for a program that I'm doing called The Rematch. I just came out with a few of the interviews. I interviewed Kareem, I interviewed Isaiah Thomas, and I interviewed Craig Hodges. Wonderful interviews, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So later on, I'm going to come out with Adam Silver that I interviewed, and some other interviews with Jamel Hill. Had some great interviews. But Isaiah Thomas is interesting because I interviewed Isaiah Thomas for an hour, and he didn't say one bad word about MJ. Not one bad word. He had a little bit to say about Pippen. You know what I mean? But he didn't say anything bad about MJ. And I think, when people are saying from the documentary, and they're saying, well, it wasn't just MJ. Other people had issues with him. And this person had an issue, and this person had issue with Isaiah Thomas. I'm like, now y'all come on, be real. Didn't nobody care what Karl Malone thought. Didn't nobody care what, nobody else thought. It was about what MJ thought. And even if there were other people who had issues, MJ was the one who said, if he play, I ain't playing. It don't matter. Did nobody else give that ultimatum? MJ, like you hear other people saying, like I think David Robbins said, yeah, other people had a little issues with MJ, but then nobody else say nothing. It was MJ that said, that if Isaiah Thomas don't play, then I'm not playing. And I was just like, that's one of, I had a few criticisms of the documentary. I'm not gonna say I love the documentary. I thought it was great, The Last Dance, but I had a few criticisms. That was one of them. I was like, okay, hold up now. Just say you said it. Because MJ was kind of dancing around it with it. He was like, well, it wasn't just me. I didn't really say that to Rod Thorne in particular. I just asked who else was going to be on the team. I was like, come on now, MJ. Everybody know good and well that you said it. So now you saw the video of the tapes come out. You know what I mean? Even though I hate that TMZ is the one that brought him out because I don't,
Yeah.
particularly care about TMZ. But you could hear MJ saying it, which we all knew anyway. But I
Right.
thought that. And another thing, let me just say, you didn't ask this, but another thing I didn't like about the thing is that you had a whole section on the activism part, and you didn't include Craig Hodges. Come on now.
Man.
Come on now,
So
man. Come on, man.
look, we had him on the show, so
Okay.
you know how he talked about, and of
Yeah.
course, thank God, hey, we own our show, we come up with our stuff, so
Right.
I was able to ask him, and he talked about that.
Yeah.
We talked about him getting blackballed. We talked about Craig Hodges. Shout out to Craig. We
Yeah.
talked about him. In '91, he planned to boycott game one. He went to Magic and Mike. And he talked about that. How they were like, "Nah, I'm not doing
nah." Yep. I asked him the same thing, so I interviewed him as well, and I asked him. I was like, "How was your relationship with MJ?" And he was like, "I'm good." He's like, "It wasn't no like personal." He's like, I didn't have no personal beef with him. It was just the things that he stood for were diametrically opposing to what Craig Hodges stood for. He's like, it wasn't personal. He's like, he wanted MJ to use his voice. You had all these kids killing themselves over your shoes. And I'm coming every day looking at you, and you ain't saying nothing about it. He's like, I got a problem with that. You know what I mean? He was like, then, he's like, MJ had the power. It wasn't, he said some of the things, it wasn't even about money. Like his power and his voice was more powerful than his money. Like he could have said, peace be still. And everybody would have been still. You know what I'm saying? Like that type of power. And he was like, when you have that kind of power, like, I don't see how you can't use it. Like he was just, he wanted things to be different. And he's from Chicago. So he's like, we had a lot of stuff going on in Chicago. How could you not speak about it? So it wasn't personal. You know what I mean? So I had a lot of respect for Craig Hodges. But yeah, in the documentary, they even showed a little bit of the White House visit, and they showed B.J. Armstrong shooting threes. I'm like, B.J. Armstrong, man, where's Craig Hodges is right there. It's like it was almost intentional. Like like the camera would be panning, and it would be close to Craig Hodges, and they'd be like, and then go and then keep going. I'd be like, y'all really trying hard not to show Craig Hodges. So that part I didn't like.
But Craig, Craig said he told us, he was like, before it came out, well, I didn't know, but he was saying how Jordan controlled everything. He was like, yeah man, it's a lot of stuff that they kept out. Jordan made sure that it was certain stuff that came out. They didn't want to ruffle no feathers or whatever. But speaking of that, LeBron, he has LeBron has that I guess platform to where if he say peace be still, it's getting, especially in the NBA, and he's used that. What your thoughts on him being able to use his platform to help out communities and make certain statements that is good for us?
Oh, I think it's been fantastic. I mean, I'll tell you, like I asked Kareem Abdul-Jabbar that question, as far as asking him about the GOAT and everything, the GOAT conversation, stuff like that, and he said, people are worried about the wrong thing. Like, don't nobody care about that. Like, that don't even matter. He's like, what LeBron is doing right now is way more important than everything that he's doing on the court. Like what he's doing and using his voice and using his platform and the power of it. And he's like, he's standing on the shoulders of the people that came before him. And he talked about Jackie Robinson. And he talked about Muhammad Ali. He's standing on their shoulders and what he's doing, and how he's setting the bar for athletes after him. And he said, and the athletes after him are going to follow. He's like the next superstar, like Zion. He's going to be influenced by what LeBron is doing. This is all what Kareem is saying. So that just tells you the level of, what the significance of what LeBron is doing. He's the top player at his craft right now, and he has a social conscience. That's a great combination. You know what I mean? Man. So much respect to him.
Much respect. All right, Etan, we gotta let you go, man.
All right, cool.
Been there for a while, man, but
all good.
Man, loved it. This was great. We gotta have you back.
That's great. let me know.
Yeah, we gotta do that.
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir. Yes, sir.
Keep doing your thing. Keep spitting out these good interviews, man. So we need
Appreciate it.
good. It's different because the black media is so important right now. And you even saw it, and you saw it in The Last Dance, where MJ was like, I ain't talking to none of y'all, but I'll talk to Ahmad Rashad. You know what I mean? Because there's a certain different way that he related to him. We need people in the media like you. So keep doing your thing. And for real, stay encouraged and keep doing what you're doing.
Appreciate that, man. Definitely, man. So once again, it's Raphael Haynes, aka Mr. Controversy, and I got my man Etan Thomas. If y'all looking at the ticker, go ahead and make sure y'all follow him at Etan Thomas 36 and check out the website etonthomas.com. Also, make sure you follow the 3-Point Conversion at Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. All right. Until then, will you miss me? I'll holler at y'all. Peace.